إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا من سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فما يضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. قال الله في القرآن الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. صدق الله العظيم. Brothers and sisters, we begin by praising Allah. We seek His help, we seek His guidance, and we seek forgiveness from Allah from the bad deeds in which we sometimes do. Whomsoever Allah guides, no one can misguide them, and whomsoever Allah allows to be led astray, no one can guide them. And I bear witness that Allah alone is worthy of worship, and that Muhammad is His last and final messenger. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. Ameen. Allah says in the Quran, He says, fear Allah as He should be feared, or be conscious of Allah, be aware of Allah as He should be, and die not except in a state of Islam. And verily, Allah speaks the truth. Excuse me. Brothers and sisters, I wanted to share a story with you all that occurred after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, but still within that time period, in which a man of no real significance, Tabi'i, someone who wasn't from the companions of the Prophet, but the generation that came after the companions of the Prophet. So he was praying at a masjid in Damascus, Syria. His name was Abu Idris. And he saw at prayer time, probably Isha prayer, it was in the evening, he saw a group of people surrounding a man, and the man in the center of this circle of people surrounding him, smiling and telling stories, or what looked like he was teaching. And so he was a little bit curious, and so he asked the person next to him, he said, who is this man that's sitting in the center of this circle? Looks like he's someone of some importance, so I'm wondering who he is. And so he was told that was Mu'adh ibn Jabal, who was a companion of the Prophet. So this was someone who met the Prophet, who interacted with the Prophet, ﷺ, and for that reason alone, he was a local celebrity this evening. Everyone wanted to talk to him, discuss with him, and be his friend, because they wanted to come closer to their deen, they wanted to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Abu Idris, he did not join this gathering, he went home. He returned to the masjid as he always did early in the morning, and he thought that he would be the first person to get to the masjid the following morning for Salat al-Fajr. However, he was not, because Mu'adh ibn Jabal was already there, and he was already praying. What looked like he was praying Qiyam al-Layl. And so Abu Idris, he sat behind him and he waited for his prayer to be finished. And so he waited, and immediately after his salah was over, he said, oh Mu'adh. And so the person turned around, Mu'adh turned around and he asked, hey, how are you? He said, I love you for the sake of Allah. Ahibbuk lillah. I love you for Allah. And so Mu'adh said, is this really true? And he got a little bit closer to him and he smiled. He said, do you really love me for Allah's sake alone? And he said, yes, I do. And he said it with such excitement and enthusiasm. It's a little bit of a cute interaction. Imagine it saying that to someone you know nothing about and you've just met. In fact, you haven't even been introduced. It's a complete stranger, but you know that he's a companion of the Prophet. So you tell him that you love him. And you mean that. And so that's what's happening. So Mu'adh, he recognizes this and he pulls him closer and he said, I have good news for you. And he narrates a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ. It's وَجَبَتْ مُحَبَّتِي لِمُتَحَابِينَ فِيهَا, which is, my love is wajib. Excuse me, there's a hadith Qudsi. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is saying this. He's saying, my love is wajib upon those who love for my sake. Meaning that anyone who loves someone for my sake, Allah's sake, I have to love them. I have to give my love for that person. If someone has pure intentions and they have love for someone and it's purely for Allah's sake, then you will receive the love of your Creator. And so this hadith Qudsi, which means that it's a something that Allah said, but it's not in the Quran, it's actually narrated by the Prophet, it explains that. And we see today that there are people from many different faiths, many different religions, and they all claim, or they all believe, many of them believe, that God loves them. And many of them believe that they love God. But we as Muslims, we are concerned with that, but what we'd like to be a little bit more concerned about, at least for this khutbah, is we want to be concerned with whether Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves us. That's the real question. Does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala love us? Have we earned the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And so the Prophet ﷺ said, he said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he loves someone, he calls Jibreel, the Archangel Gabriel, the greatest angel, the one who helped narrate the Quran to the Prophet ﷺ. He calls him and he says, Ya Jibreel, oh Jibreel, I love, Fulan, which means like so-and-so or somebody. He's explaining that, I love this person. And so Jibreel knows that it's his duty that anytime Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him that he loves someone, that he needs to tell all the angels. And so Jibreel goes and he spreads the word of your love, and this is what we hope, we can all achieve, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves us. And so imagine that Jibreel is telling every single angel in existence that Allah loves you. And it doesn't end there. Afterwards, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives pleasure or peace in that person's heart. He literally puts peace. He gives you pleasure. He gives you happiness. He places happiness into your heart. And so it's so important for us, we see, to try and strive and achieve that love from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so in order to try and get that love, we turn to the book of Allah, the Quran, and we see who are the people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He loves in the Quran. And the first example, which we should all be somewhat familiar of, is the example of the closest friend to Allah, Khalilullah, Ibrahim alayhi salam. The Prophet Abraham, he was known to be called the friend of Allah in the Quran. And so one time the Prophet ﷺ, he was leading prayer, and he recited that verse. He recited that verse in which he mentions that وَاتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ إِبْرَاهِيمَ خَلِيلًا, which is, I have taken Ibrahim as a close friend or a dear friend, someone that's very close to me. This is Allah saying this in Surah Al-Baqarah. And so one of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ hears this, and after Salah, you can see the way that they dealt with the prayer. It wasn't something that they just did and then they walked away and they shut it out of their mind. They were thinking about it, and so he struck up a conversation with the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, imagine being the mother of Ibrahim. How proud you would be to know that your son has such a status with his Creator. It's something that all of us would want for our own kids, right? If we have children, we will want to be able to refer to our sons as Khalilullah, or the dear friend of Allah, right? That's such a magnificent thing. It's a beautiful blessing or title. These days we all want a title. We want to be a lawyer, a doctor. We want some sort of title of respect, but really, truly, that's a title to surpass all of those. And another story of another prophet, Prophet Ayyub alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, we found him to be patient, and what a blessed servant he is. Meaning that the reason that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves or loved Ayyub is because he demonstrated patience. So we should see that, if I want to achieve the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then I should seek patience. And so the Prophet ﷺ, in one hadith, he mentioned the story of a man. This man was going to visit a friend, and this man had no reason to visit this friend other than for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so a man came up to him, and we know from the hadith that this man was actually an angel. And this angel asked the man, who are you going to see? Where are you going? And he explained to him, he said it with pride, I'm going to see this person for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what he means by that is I don't have any ulterior motive. I'm not trying to ask for some money. I'm not trying to get some worldly benefit out of this. I'm doing it purely for Allah's pleasure and for my own benefit, to get closer to my Creator, get closer to my religion. And so the person revealed himself to be an angel, and he said, I give you good news. I'm an angel from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I have a message from Allah that He loves you. And that's really something that we should all be thinking to ourselves, how can I attain that love from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How can I achieve it? And so, as we mentioned earlier in the khutbah, you get these benefits if you achieve the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, Allah, Jibreel, and all the angels will love you. If you earn Allah's love, then all the angels will love you as well. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put pleasure into your heart, put peace into your heart, put happiness into your heart. And that will also mean that the people around you will also feel that love towards you. And that's really, if you think about it, one of the number one needs of any human being. Everyone needs love. All of us are in need of love. And many of us were not capable of giving love, but we all love to receive love, right? No, there's no one that doesn't like to receive love. Even if it's from a complete stranger, you'll walk away from them, you'll walk away from that interaction, you'll think to yourself, you know what, that made me feel really good, that I felt that person loved me. So really, when you're talking about receiving the love of Allah, you're talking about immense benefit towards yourself, towards your soul, towards your self-esteem, towards your happiness. And then it's said that if that person were to ask for anything, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would grant anything that they ask. You're in a good position to ask for whatever you may need. And if you seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from anything, Allah will protect him, and his end will surely be in Jannah. Meaning if Allah loves you, then you are promised Jannah. If Allah loves you, then you are promised Jannah. So really, truly, this is something that we should all try and achieve. However, there's a question, which is what happens if the opposite is true? And that's a tough question to ask, but we have to ask it nonetheless. What if Allah doesn't love us? What if Allah hates us? What if Allah is upset with us for us disobeying Him? He will say to Jibreel, "Oh Jibreel, my servant so-and-so is continuing to anger me, and my anger has overcome him." Meaning it's going to spell bad news for this person. And we can kind of see that the opposite of everything that we said will be true if we don't earn the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we continue to disobey Him. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to continually seek the love of Allah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from His anger and wrath. This is a good time to repent. قولي قولي هذا فاستغفر الله ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. If you showed up late, what we're talking about is the love of Allah. How important it is, how we should all be striving to achieve it. We mentioned some of the benefits of that, and we mentioned what happens if we're not trying to seek it. Now we want to talk about, okay, what are some practical things that we can do to try and earn the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the Prophet ﷺ, and this is a funny story, it's actually not just for how to achieve the love of Allah, but it's just a good story nonetheless. He was with children, and he was playing with them as he would do. We saw that the Prophet ﷺ was not only concerned with the matters of the adults, but also you would spend time with the children and the elderly, which is a sunnah that we should follow as well in our own lives, is that we should make time for the children and elderly around us, whether there's a material benefit in us giving our time to them or not. That's a right that they have on us, or something that we should spend some time doing. And so he was playing with his grandson, Hussein, and he pulled him up and he meant it in a playful way, like, be good to my grandson and treat him with love. But at the same time, it gets you kind of thinking, okay, if it's so easy to get Allah's love, maybe there's some other things that I can do to also achieve Allah's love as well. So there's a list. I'm going to go through it, inshallah. The first thing that we can do is we can get up, and this is one of the hardest things on the list, starting with that one on purpose. We can get up before Fajr, and we can make dua. Because in the last third of the night, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descends from heaven, and He asks who is awake and who is in need of me. And who may I, what may I be of assistance with? Who will ask for forgiveness, so I shall forgive them. And so really, this is something that unfortunately these days I don't really see it being talked about. I guess people don't want to brag, and I understand that, but really this is a type of behavior, this is the level in which all of the Sahaba were on, and we should try and get to that level of the companions of the Prophet, where they would get up early and they would spend that time, intimate time alone, They would designate that time to ask for Allah's forgiveness and to have a personal relationship with Allah where they can spend some time asking for forgiveness, asking for what they need. Maybe they have some challenges and difficulty in their lives, and they rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to rectify those issues and those solutions. And you would think that just asking for dua is enough, but this is a way to achieve Allah's love. So really, there's immense benefits, and there's nothing really holding us back except our love of sleep, right? The next thing is to make dhikr or adhkar, for us to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Simply remembering Allah is a way for us to achieve His love. And so really, there's two ways in which we can do this. We can try and just put it in our brains, you know what, if there's ever a time in which I'm stuck in traffic, I'm waiting at the DMV, I'm waiting in line. I understand nowadays it's very hard to ever find a moment of seclusion or where your mind is blank because we have our cell phones. And so anytime you're bored, you whip that thing out and you just start scrolling, right? Maybe now it would be better for your mental health, better for your spiritual health, to put the phone away and remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's one thing we can do. The next thing we can do is actually, like I mentioned in the first one, set aside a time strictly for remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, put that time aside and just say, you know what, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to relax my brain, relax my heart, give it time to just be. And we need that. We actually need that. They're saying that there's a rise of depression and mental health issues right now, and they're finding that the cause for that is information overload, and that we're always being assaulted with news and new information, people trying to fight for our attention, and it's not good for us. So instead, we should seek some quiet, some isolation. The next thing we can do is to be with those who truly love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should try our best to spend time with people we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. In Surah Al-Kahf, I'm not going to be able to get through the entirety of that story of the people of the cave when they're stuck in the cave, but what's important to note is that there's a special gathering of people, and with them, and they're stuck in a cave, and with them is a dog. And this dog is mentioned in the Quran, immortalized in the Quran, simply not because of it doing anything special or heroic or worshiping or anything like that, simply because it was a dog that was with the people of the cave. And that's enough for it to be mentioned. And really that just goes to show that it doesn't take you a lot to be loved by Allah, but if you spend time with the people that Allah loves, that can be enough. Because even this dog was mentioned in the Quran, which is definitely a sign that Allah loved it. And they say that good companionship is like the person who sells musk. You know, you may not buy any musk, but because you went to the perfume store, you talked with him, you tried some things on, you're going to leave smelling good anyway. So we should try and spend our time with people that are going to leave us smelling good, rather than spending time with people that are going to leave us feeling dirty and smelling bad. We should love to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many of us, we have this apprehension when we think about the day that we may meet our Creator. We feel a little bit anxious. We're not sure what's going to happen, rightfully so, right? None of us really know the status of our own deeds, but we should try and encourage us to rewrite the way we think about it and be excited to meet our Creator. Because if we're not excited to meet our Creator, then our Creator will not be excited to meet us. And if you're not excited to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's a sign that you may be disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because really, why else wouldn't you want to meet Him, right? Unless there's something you want to hide, or something you're embarrassed about, or you feel worried about, I don't know if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave me for that, so on and so forth. But really, we should recognize that Allah is capable of forgiving anything, and we should be happy or excited to meet Him. And really that begs the question is, what is standing between us and Allah? What is standing between us and the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ? We need to ask ourselves that question. That's something when we go home this evening, or we drive back to work, or drive back home, we should ask ourselves, it's a mental exercise, what's standing between me and my Creator? Or me and being a better Muslim? Is it worth giving that up? What's more important? Is it more important for me to be engaged in that behavior and engaged in that thing, friends with that person, whatever it may be? or is it more important for me to be closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I understand many of us probably know the right answer and it's difficult for us to give up, but it's still a conversation that we should have with ourselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in Surah Al-Imran, He says, if you love me, then follow me, and I will love you and forgive you of your sins. So He's reassuring us, look, if you want me to love you and you want to love me, there's a path for you, and I'll forgive you for everything that you've done. So we shouldn't feel that, you know what, there's no chance for me, there's no hope for me, I've done too much wrong. Surely Allah is capable of forgiving you for everything that you've done. As we mentioned earlier, patience. Patient, Inna Allah yuhibbu as-sabirin. Verily Allah loves those who are patient. That's a sign of someone. Patience is one of the characteristics of those that Allah loves. So we're just going to leave it at that. And lastly, the nawafil, the voluntary acts. All the optional or non-obligatory deeds that we can do, all of these things are going to bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the Prophet ﷺ said in Hadith Qudsi that Allah said that the slave will continue to come close to me in voluntary deeds until I love him. Meaning that the more optional deeds you do, the closer you're going to get to me. And I think we all understand that. Sometimes we need a reminder, but really if we knew, we would be doing it, right? And that's why we need a reminder. Alhamdulillah. And these can be deeds of both the tongue and lips, meaning that we can be praying, we can be doing good deeds, we can be helping people. All of these things can bring us closer to the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, with that being said, I have to end with a question to you all. Do you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do you have that love? Do you think to yourself, when you think of Allah, you have that high opinion? Do you have that love in your heart, overwhelming? Do you feel towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the same way that you feel towards the person that you love most in this world? Is that love greater than that person? You have a greater love for Allah than you do for that person. Another question that you have to ask yourself, I cannot answer it for you, but a wise person, he once said, how can you disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you claim that you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Really, if you loved Allah, you wouldn't disobey Him. So we should all push ourselves to be closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to be willing to give up deeds that are not good choices and allow us to obey Him. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us in our nawafil, our voluntary acts of worship. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us in patience. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to love Him and to love His Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the desire to love to meet Him, not just want to meet Him, love to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us gatherings of Muslims who would all love to be with Him and all love Him and allow us to enjoy each other's company and give us that sense of true brotherhood, true community, healthy functioning ummah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us in remembrance of Him, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us in our worship of Him. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ رَبَّنَا لَا تُزِغْ قُلُوبَنَا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَيْتَنَا وَهَبْ لَنَا مِن لَّدُنكَ رَحْمَةً إِنَّكَ أَنتَ الْوَهَّابُ رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لَنَا وَلِوَالِدَيْكَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَوْمَ يَقُومُ الْحِسَابُ وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ